All right, folks, so to get started with your coding here, um, we're definitely going to need this when started code, right? And we're going to definitely have to add our sensors or motors and stuff. So let's click add a device, click this thing here, add a device, and we'll definitely need a motor for the conveyor belt. I don't know where your motor is, but I'm going to say it's on 1. And then we're going to need a sensor, so that's the conveyor belt. It's going to get the conveyor belt moving. But then there's a lot of sensors here, right? These are the sensors that come with VEX V5. You can buy them. Optical sensors, electromagnetic sensors. I gotta find that one. I want to buy that one. But really, we're looking at the 3-wire one. And what is the 3-wire one? Well, you might have put a limit switch or a light sensor or a range finder. So it doesn't really matter which one you used. Let's say it's the light sensor, right? And then just say what port it's plugged into. Done. And I'll talk about whether you did something else in a second, but it doesn't really matter what sensor it is. It's going to detect something, and we'll just say if it is this or not that or less than something or whatever. So we'll figure that out in a minute. Then motors. Okay, this third thing is going to be either a servo. So we go to 3-wire and we go to servo. I wonder if servos are here. I think they are. Right here, servo. So you can go ahead and add that servo. It's the old ones, right? But you also may not want to do that. You may want to just add a motor because these new motors can actually act like servos anyway. So I'm just going to say you did that. But it's up to you on this one. So this is the thing that's going to swipe the box off of your conveyor belt when it finds that there is something there. So you're going to lay these little boxes on the conveyor belt. And for the meanwhile, I actually have the wooden cubes, but you can just use whatever you want, little balls of paper, whatever you want, so just, or you can take a piece of paper and tape it into a box or whatever you need to do. Honestly, you can just put your finger in front of the sensor as well, and it'll just detect your fingers there, and it's going to think there's a box there, and then it'll stop the conveyor belt and swipe. It'll try to swipe your finger away if you move your finger out of the way or not. So let's just put done. So we got our motor that runs the conveyor belt. We got our motor that, motor 2 is going to one that swipes it off. And we have something that detects, some sort of sensor that detects the box there. So definitely always, unless you want this code to only run one single time, like and never do it again, we're definitely going to need a forever loop, okay? So we'll definitely need that forever loop. So it's just always checking, always running the conveyor belt, or always doing something there. And then let's try the if else, okay? Not the if, we need if else. And this gives us two options here. So if the sensor is reading something and if it's not. So if the sensor is reading something and it's not, or if it's not and it is. It depends what you put right here and where the little hand is. So let's see if I can zoom into this. There we go. So it makes it a little clearer on your screen. Let's go over to sensing, and this is where we'll find all our sensor information we added. Well, we only added the one light sensor, but yours is going to be here. If here it is light sensing. There it is. Now, someone noted in class that it doesn't fit in here, if light sensor. Well, because if light sensor doesn't make sense. It just says if light sensor's brightness. That's it. It doesn't say if it's less than or if it's equal to something. It doesn't say that. It just says, in other words, this little thing I just pulled out, this little pill-shaped thing, all it's going to do, this little block here, is just going to say what the percent of brightness is of the light sensor. If this was your rangefinder, your distance sensor, let's say you're using, it's just going to tell you how far away something is. If it's a limit switch, it's just going to tell you whether it's pressed or not. That's it. But it doesn't tell you if you want it or not. So we're going to go here to operators, the green area. There's where you'll find objects. You see these? They actually do fit in there. You see the shape? The shape does fit in there. That's where you're saying, hey, is this thing equal to, is it less than, equal to, greater than, what is it? Now, which one do you use? I don't know. I will tell you probably you're not going to use the equal sign unless you have a limit switch. Then you're going to say if it's equal to 1 or something like that. Or maybe you might even find a limit switch one. Maybe the limit switch one looks like this right here. Okay, and it might just say if limit switch is pressed. Well, then that makes sense. But for anything with a sensor that senses different amounts of something, you're definitely going to need this. And I don't know if you need the greater than or the less than. I don't know. You'll have to play with it. So we can put this in here, and then it says, if the lightness percent is greater than 50 or whatever you put, 30 or 50 or whatever, I don't know what you're going to put. You have to put whatever works. That goes in, there we go. Oh, let me get it in there. That goes in there. I think I'm zoomed in a little too much. So if the light brightness percent is greater than 30, and you might need less than 30, I'm not sure, you'll have to play with it. If it's brightness, it's going to get darker when it passes by. Brightness goes up. I'm gonna guess brightness goes up. So you might need the less than. Actually, just thinking about it, I'm not 100% sure, but you may need the less than. So let me use that one. In other words, so I'm assuming that if it gets less than 50, that means it's getting dark. So, and that means something's passing by. So if something's getting dark, I want the conveyor belt to stop. So the very first thing you can do, by the way, if you want your conveyor belt to start immediately, you can go over here to the motor and just say spin the motor forward. And we can do that right off the bat, not even in the loop. It's just going to do that right when the code starts. Then the motor is running, right? And if it gets dark, whatever code this is to make it dark, we're going to say stop the motor. So let's say stop motor. Here we go. So we're going to say stop the motor. What else are we going to say? We're going to say stop the motor and maybe wait. Is that an event? Yes, wait. Let's just wait 1 second for now. And then we're going to turn the other motor on, the servo motor. So look for the servo motor here. So I'm going to say spin motor position. Oh, and that's the thing. If you're going to use this new motors, I would, at the very beginning of the code, before you even go into this forever loop, before you even get to this forever loop. By the way, I'm going to put this in the forever loop. I guess I can do that now. It just looks confusing when I put it in there now. It's like I like to look at it here first, and then it's like there's too much stuff going on there. But you definitely want to probably start that motor, and then you're going to set the position of the second motor. Remember, that's your, so don't forget to change this right here to your other motor. We're going to change its position to 0. So we're going to assume that 0 is sort of it not swiping anything. It's just kind of pushed out of the way. And then we're going to stop the motor, wait a second, and then we're going to rotate, or what's called spin, the motor for 90 degrees. Now, is it 90? I don't know. Is it negative 90? I don't know. Is it 180 degrees? I don't know, because I don't know your conveyor belt. You'll turn it on and watch it move, and you go, oh, it should have swiped the other way, or it should have swiped more, or it can swipe less. It went a little farther than I wanted, and it hit this other piece of metal. This is the numbers you'll adjust right here. Same thing here. If you want to adjust the sensitivity of when this thing gets triggered on the sensor, adjust this code as well. And do you need this 1 second? I don't know. Try to remove it. Increase the time, decrease the time. Try to remove it altogether. Maybe it'll work fine. I don't know. You can play with that. So we're going to spin the motor 90 degrees. Then I would wait a second or like a half second or something so you can play with this. And then we got to spin the servo. Oops, this was supposed to be motor 2, by the way. So remember, motor 2 is our thing that's going to be on top of the conveyor belt that kind of pushes the box out of the way. We're going to wait 1 second, and then we're going to spin the motor. This is it. This is the same one. We're going to spin it back, forward, no, reverse for 90 degrees. So I think that should work. I wonder if you could say forward, spin motor forward. I see. There's one that says just spin to position. So I don't know what that does. You can use the ones I did. I said forward and reverse. You can also try this one right here. It just says spin it to a position. I don't know how that works. Maybe it goes in reverse or forward, whatever's closer, and it just decides for you. And this is like, no, I want to decide what direction it spins. But this one will spin it to the right direction, to the exact position, 90 degrees. Given that you're doing these ones right here, these two, I'm guessing you may not need to set position to 0, but I guess it doesn't really matter if you're using this system. So we're going to spin open, this has to be motor 2 again. So spin motor 2 forward for 90 degrees, then spin it back, reverse 90 degrees, so it goes back to where it came from. And then I think we can convert. We definitely want to turn that first motor back on. So we want to turn this motor back on. Remember when we first turned it on at the beginning right here? We want to turn it back on so everything's running smooth. Actually, if you might get away with this, but I'm not sure. You might get away with just putting it here else. So in other words, if the light sensor is dark, it's going to stop the motor. It's going to wait 1 second. It's going to swipe this motor down and push the box out of the way. Wait a second, then it's going to go back. If you want this to go faster, change these wait times. Then it's going to go back 90 degrees. And then that's it. And then hopefully the brightness is not this dark anymore. It's bright again because the box is out of the way, and it'll start this code because it'll leave this section and it'll just turn here. You can also play with this and say, no, I want it when it's all done with this is to turn the motor back on and also turn the motor on here as well. So it's up to you if you want to do that. Remember, once this code is activated right here, this one where it says if this is true, it won't go down here and do the else until it is finished with all the things in this section. So it's not like, what if the box get kicked out of the way? Will it stop doing this code because, this is not true anymore? It'll just stop doing this. No, it'll finish everything here. Even if this code in here took a half hour to do, it will do all this code because this happened right here. This thing happened. So then this thing got less than 50. So it will do everything in this section right here, no matter how long it takes. When it's done, then it'll go here because this is not true anymore. If it's not true anymore, it's going to go here and do this all the time forever until this becomes true. Then it'll activate this code. So I think more or less this is sort of the code you're looking for. You can play around with it. This will guide you to get it to work. Pretty much I think this should get it to work. Just double check if you're having problems that you got the right motor set. So right here, remember you have a choice. Even me, I was making that mistake right here and forgetting to change those. So make sure that you're thinking about what motor you're trying to turn on and which not. I did these two right at the beginning of the code before it even entered this forever loop. Once it goes in this forever loop, it's going to get stuck here. It'll never go back up here. So the code starts, it spins the motor on, it sets motor 2 to a position of 0, just so we get our head straight. By the way, one last thing. You're probably wondering, like, what is my light sensor? What is the brightness of my light sensor? What you might want to know that, right? Because you're trying to figure out whether your motor, what the brightness is. So I think you can print that on your screen of your little box, the brain. What you would do is this. You would go to, I think, controls. No, it's looks. There we go. Print. So you can say this right here. Print vex code on brain. Right here. I don't want to print that. I want to print. Let's go to sensing. And let's see. Here we go. Remember that one we used before right here? Percent whatever the brightness of the light is. Remember we did it right here? I want to print that on the brain. And look, I can print it on the console too. That's interesting. I guess there's a console here somewhere that we can push. I don't know where it is, but let's just print it on the brain. So the the touch screen, it should print it there when the code is running. The problem is it'll print it over and over again, and I think you have to do some stuff like set the cursor back to the same spot so it overwrites that number over and over again. Let's see here. Clear all rows in the brain. Clear. So you might want to play around with this, but I think you got to set cursor to this. Set the cursor position to 1, 1 on the brain, and then print that. Then when it's done checking this stuff, it'll go back to the top. It'll activate one of these two sections, the if or the else, then it'll go back to the top, set the cursor back to the same spot, so it overwrites the old brightness over and over again. Otherwise, I think it's just going to print tons of numbers all over the screen, and it might be a bit confusing. You could try it without this. You could try it without this, but I think you do need it. You can try and see what happens. I think it just prints over and over again. But this should guide you, and this will give you the print value right here. And when you put your hand in front of it or a box in front of it, you'll get to see what that number is. That'll give you a better idea of what you want to put here and whether you want to put less than or greater than right here and what number you want to put here. And that should do it. All right, folks? So go ahead and get that done.